this is what I've been waiting for. This is the TV I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I can't let out more than what we are letting out right now prior to the embargo in what, 14 minutes? But I could only say I don't think they'll be disappointed.
Well, FOMO, what's also, I think, exciting, not just the people that are buying, what I think is also fascinating, if you're somebody, hey, Robert, if you're somebody who actually bought a TV last year, um, you're hoping your TV carries over. Like we saw that with the Z9K. You're like, please, please, please tell me my TV is still current. And those of you that had the A95L have felt that for the last number of years. We can't forget about the mini LED lineup as well. And obviously, Sony announced the future project, which is the RGB mini LED, which was mind blowing. It's a very interesting strategy. But I think what's interesting too, FOMO, this year more than any other, is that you can have a TV release last week and be old news. I
Yeah.
mean, that's happened so quickly. I've never seen it as long as you and I have been on the platform to where you can say, hey, I got this the other day. They're like, all right, cool. There's already been coverage on it. So we're already seeing, due to the UK having a ton of S95F reviews and G5 reviews, that hype is already settled down. Not only has it
Yeah.
settled down, FOMO, the G5 has raised concerns that should give many of you pause because the same concerns the CX had. So it's going to put the brakes on a lot of buys there, setting up
Hmm.
Sony to jump in. So it really is great. But as I mentioned, if you're going to hang back, you better deliver. And that's really what they have to do. Is if you're going to have this showmanship of waiting and having separate events, you better show up with something that people are going to be happy about.
And just to emphasize what LG is doing, the issues near black handling, they've solved it before. Now, if it
Yep.
was the first time it happened, it may take even longer, but it isn't, right? This black crawl, the issue with the near black overshoot or undershoot or whatever it is they're dealing with right now, they've dealt it with prior WOLED, MLA, without MLA. So they have the solution. It's just a matter of implementing it and fine-tuning the software.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel they'll get it solved, if not already. I've already heard rumors that in the UK, in terms of the G5 there, the recent firmware update, either that's just released or coming up, will specifically address that. So I
Yeah.
have every confidence LG will fix it in this generation.
Yep.
Nevertheless, our rule is until it's fixed, don't assume it is.
Yeah.
But I feel that they will.
Well,
So I
and
think
FOMO
they'll
back.
fix it in time for the shootout.
Well, in FOMO back to Sony, what they're known for is handling things with their updates and continuing to update TVs from the past. Really quickly in regards to LG, I'll be at Value Electronics this weekend. He's going to have his G5s there. We'll check that out. Then you and I are going to have a separate event on April 12th. We'll be checking out the G5 compared to every TV in the room. So those of you that are about to buy it or have bought it, don't worry about it. We got you covered. We'll really push the content to bring those issues out. I'm confident LG will figure it out. However, Sony, other than the A95L when you got it at Best Buy off like 3 weeks early,
Yeah,
it was still in the oven. They tend not to make these mistakes. So when Sony
not
releases
anymore.
this, when Sony releases this product, I'm fairly certain you'll have a refined product right from jump. That's why I think they like to hang back and let the story develop and kind of let us tell the story. So I'm anxious to get this countdown out so we can actually talk about it. And I will tell you guys, between us as hosts, for a good part of the leaks, this is the funny part, FOMO,
Uh-huh.
for the leaks and the videos that we did in regards to the leaks, at that time, we did not know anything. It wasn't until we went to Japan that we learned everything, which is why we did those videos before we left. Very hard to keep a straight face when talking to you guys and go, yeah, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. And you guys really try to catch FOMO and I in other videos asking about other TVs from other, like, hey, why are you buying that, bro? Is that because Sony's not going to have one? And so they've all tried to do that. So I love you guys for jumping in and messing with us. We have 652 in the chat. Please hit like. I also have a video following this up where you'll see the actual lineup from the footage that I shot in Japan. So we'll be with you guys all morning. I appreciate you guys being here with us. Please hit like on this, and then again follow us to my video after. But I like how it's also a big event, FOMO. For the other TVs, we haven't really had a launch event kind of like this, have we? We kind of do live streams where you get the TV and we unbox it. So only Sony can really kind of warrant us doing a freaking countdown, if you think about it.
Well, that segues into this question by FPS Global. Is Sony doing a live stream? My friends, we are the live stream.
It's us.
So, yep, it's us. Sony, we work
It
closely with
might be.
Sony.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't think they are.
Yeah.
We work closely with Sony and other brands, so we know what kind of launch they'll have. And for us, we kind of specialize in live streaming your questions, the product, the announcement. And so it allows us to essentially be the live stream of choice for these TV
Yeah.
launches. And it allows us to also be objective, right? So
Yeah.
rather than being an ambassador for the brand, we throw in our own take about what we like and maybe what we might not like and what the other brands bring to the table. So
Yeah.
it's a live stream launch in a sense where you'll get our objectivity as to what we really like about it. As we say, there is no perfect TV, but similarly, every TV has its strengths. So we want to remind you what the strengths are, but then we'll also apply it to your use case. It may not be good for you. This may not be the TV for you, or it may be the TV for you, or it may be too expensive for you, and we'll offer alternatives from other models in the Sony brand or other brands. So it's important that we have this live stream in the context of there are a lot more brands out there, but there's also this excitement of, because we did the LG thing, right? I was at LG doing a live stream there, and I'm trying to convince Samsung to let me do it next year, but you then follow up with this amazing in-depth close-up of these TVs, and you're like, you know what? Copyright be damned. I'm going to do a close-up with the bad boys, and then you fight the man to get it on there.
Yeah, so I mean, just so you guys, my video actually that you're going to see today was actually flagged this morning for the footage I shot in Japan. I was assured there would be no copyright. So that video is still going up. There was also a tech glitch where it went up briefly. But more importantly, FOMO, what you said about the live stream. Now, Sony's live stream, or whatever they decide to do, and we love everybody at Sony. It's like a family there. I mean, we make new friends every time we visit. They're incredible. All these manufacturers do have a very humble gamesmanship. They do not talk about other brands when they're on camera, and even off camera, they're very humble. So that kind of leaves that if you're doing a Sony live stream and it's just Sony, they can't really give you the context, FOMO, of what they've had in the past and what other manufacturers are doing. That's what we're for, is being able to tell you, like, hey, this is why we think this is a great, like even this launch right now, if I talk to Sony about, hey, what do you think about this launch? Is it a good idea? They'd be like, maybe, I don't know, talk to my boss. So we're allowed, obviously, to have that point of view and then really getting you guys involved. Where if it's a live stream for the general tech, it won't be the family that we have here online, where we know all you guys. We get a chance to see a lot of familiar faces, and we love you guys. And again, before we get to 6 minutes, we have 700 and almost 80 people in the chat. Please take the time to hit like before we actually reveal the lineup. This is going to be fun, FOMO, because we've been keeping this bottled up for a very long time.
Oh, absolutely. And it's been so long that sometimes I'm thinking, wait, did I misremember this? Was it that good?
It's a fever dream.
I'm calling you, hey, did this happen like a month ago? Or was it 2 months ago?
I mean, I actually hit up FOMO the other day about should we do a video on the RGB mini LED. He's like, oh, we already did that. I'm like, oh, wow, we did do that one. Because it's the matte finish isn't even that bad. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about all that, guys. So we'll cover all of that. We'll discuss what we think. We want to hear about also what you guys think when the lineup is released in just under 5 minutes or just over 5 minutes. But this is fun. This is what him and I do. We are the sportscasters of the TV world, and we live for this. So I'm glad you guys are here with us this morning. 820 in the chat.
I know, right. Before we jump into the official launch announcement in less than 5 minutes, thank you so much for coming. Please click like so we can get this out there, because my goal is to break 1,000 today. I think Sony will be very excited to get at least 1,000 people to watch this launch live. So everyone, take a second, click like. We will reward you with tears and laughter today, because I think some of you will have tears, some of you will have laughter.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, well, that's the thing, is watching you guys come in here is, again, seeing everybody come into it's like a big club. What's up, Steve? Seeing you guys walk in, seeing High Def Digest in the comments as he was one that was releasing a lot of the leaks and teasing us, and love his work. But love seeing
No,
all you
no,
guys
wait.
here.
I love it sometimes when his leaks fall on
Okay.
April 1st. Then it's like,
Oh my
wait,
god.
it's April 1st. Is it really a leak? And so
He's like, it's a Lamborghini, Lamborghini yacht TV. What's up, my friend? Jennifer Gala in the house. What's up, love?
Oh, and let's take
So,
a second to thank Jennifer Gala. If you guys
yeah,
don't know her and you're new to the channel, because there's like over 800 of you, she
okay,
has two channels. Her Jennifer Gala channel specializes in Atmos mixes. So if you want to test your Atmos system, go on that channel. It has so many amazing, just self-produced Atmos mixes that really pushes your Atmos system, whether it's
yeah,
soundbar or a full-on turn-off system like I have. Or you can go to her HDR Super channel, the HDR Super channel, which I use so much to demonstrate 2000 nit, 4000 nit, 5000 nit, and she grades it to perfection. I match it to my reference monitor, the Sony Bravia 3110, and she nails it. She'll have, I mean, one time she did a scene that was so bright, I think it was like 2000 nits, but it was over a 50% window. It put the BVM 3110 to its knees. It couldn't do it. It peaked at like
yeah,
over 1500 nits on a 50% window. It couldn't get there and it clipped. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened here, right? So Jennifer
well, yeah,
really knows how to push these TVs with the
yeah,
new launches of TVs going over
yeah,
5000 nits now.
and
More
yeah,
than
and
ever,
Jen,
we're going
yeah.
to rely on Jennifer.
Yeah, Jen is my girl, and Jen, I almost texted you last night as I was fighting copyright at about 4:30 in the morning, as I really only use her content in my videos. I was using Sony's pictures videos. I was assured it was okay, and my video got kind of pulled down. So, Jen, I love you more than ever. I'm not using. That's why I don't use Hollywood movies, guys. It's not worth me fighting all morning, not sleeping because of some not very good movies that were demo material, which you'll see in the video right after this stream. But check out Jen and consider being a Patreon to her channel. You can download all of her demos for Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. But love her. Thank you for all you do, sweetheart.
And here's a great segue. Martin says, I hope Sony can make good movies as Spider-Man. A Brand New Day sounds a little lame. And that's after Madam Web, another flop. And the reason I bring this up is not because of the subjective reviews of these movies, but did you guys know the first fully graded HDR movie was Spider-Man in 2014?
It wasn't
So
Alpha,
no,
the
that came
legendary
a few
Academy
years
Award
later,
winner.
right? But the first fully natively graded HDR movie was Spider-Man, because I was in my video doing the OLED video earlier. I was doing research because this is why OLED had early problems keeping up with HDR. When they
One
were
minute left.
developed, it was,
1 minute
oh,
left.
I don't know, should we start early? I mean, with 1 minute left, should I risk it? I
But
think
I
I
mean, I
can.
already did this
I
morning,
don't
so
know. All right. Well, you know what? Let's do it. Let's have some fun here. Let's hope I don't get in trouble. I know Sony's not watching,
get this.
right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm
come
sure they're
on.
not. I'm sure
Come
they're not.
on,
Hi,
man.
Mara.
I think we can
Hi,
handle it. All
Andrew.
right, let's do
Hi.
it. Finally, the 2025 Sony TV lineup has been announced. We'll kick it off with the flagship Sony OLED TV for cinema enthusiasts who want the best. This latest OLED TV finally succeeds the A95L, which was so good that it was crowned the king of TVs 2 years in a row.
So who's the king of TVs? 8.9, winning by a small margin, is Sony's A95L.
But for 2025, Sony did not want to risk breaking this winning streak. So they updated their flagship OLED TV with the latest fourth generation QD-OLED that's both brighter and delivers better contrast than the Sony A95L. Say hello to the Bravia 8 Mark II in 55 and 65 inches. This TV is definitely designed to keep its winning streak at the TV Shootout and take on the best OLED TVs from Panasonic, LG, and Samsung. Now, if you need a flagship 77-inch QD-OLED from Sony, the A95L 77-inch continues to be available in 2025. And if you need the 83-inch Sony OLED, then the A80L continues to be available for sale in 2025 as well. The next enthusiast TV that I think will be very popular because its predecessor was probably the most popular Sony TV is the Bravia 5. It takes over for the X90L, which I loved when it was introduced 2 years ago. That ended up being probably the most popular Sony TV model. Well, the Bravia 5 takes everything that was good about the X90L and elevates it. 6 times more dimming zones, a mini LED backlight. This makes the Bravia 5 better in many ways. One, a lot brighter than the X90L, and better blooming control. But more importantly to me, a 98-inch size for the cinema enthusiast. Yes, finally, you have a Sony 98-inch for the masses that is mini LED, the skin tones, the Sony color science, the processing, the motion, all of that packaged into an entry-level mini LED at the 98-inch size that's accessible to the masses looking for that first 98-inch Sony TV that's a mini LED. And so now Sony has 3 Bravia mini LED TVs to choose from. The Bravia 5, step up to a little bit brighter specular highlights, you got the Bravia 7, and then the pinnacle is the Bravia 9. So the Bravia 7 and the Bravia 9 continue in 2025, while the Bravia 5 is all new, taking everything it's learned from the 7 and the 9 and putting it into a more affordable package in the Bravia 5 at a 98-inch size as well. So the Bravia 5 comes in 55, 65, 75, 85, and 98, while the Bravia 7 and 9 continue with all their sizes intact. So let's get back to the live stream to discuss which of these TVs excite you the most. And I sense a lot of excitement here.
So real quick, before you go, I want to just acknowledge that we had 1,200 peak, about 1,280 during the stream, which is a record for us as a team and a record for FOMO. Congratulations, FOMO. Thank you guys for helping us reach this achievement. So I want to just acknowledge that. Thank you guys so much for being here this morning and spending the morning with us. So congratulations,
Yes.
FOMO.
And one thing that I realized as I watched my own launch announcement is I forgot to mention the Bravia 8 Mark II glossy screen. There is no anti-glare matte coating. Now it has anti-glare, similar to the A95L has anti-glare, but the focus is not so much on that aggressive, how would I even describe it? Samsung's approach to anti-glare is very aggressive, right? They go all matte screen. Sony is just doing the more traditional glossy semi-gloss that maximizes contrast in all viewing conditions, and they assume you have a light-controlled room. If you have a lot of bright lights around you, you know what? You're going to have glare on an LG G5 and on the Sony, on any TV except the Samsung, which has a different ambient lighting issue. Sony does not want to deal with that. So I approve of that approach because I think if you're going to pay that much for a flagship OLED, you got to control your lighting. What are your thoughts on the Bravia 8 Mark II, Brian? Because we're going to address your questions because I see some disappointment as well.
Yeah,
so.
we're gonna let those build up. So I'll tell you, I was very surprised. I'm glad that they stayed with QD-OLED. I love QD-OLED. I think my biggest shock was there isn't a 77-inch. I was also surprised that there isn't a WOLED to bring over this year. But I am glad that they're going with the Bravia 8 Mark II. The naming is going to confuse many of you, but it is a Gen 4 QD-OLED. It's the true successor to the Sony A95L. And seeing it in action, which is something I wish that we could show you guys. I saw it in... Yeah.
Did you switch your Omni to condenser mic mode? Every time you move your head, I lose you again. So I just want to make sure you have the right mode on.
All right, I'll just stay close. It's the same mode. Is that better?
Yep, perfect.
All right, so I'm glad they stayed with QD-OLED. Again, I'm disappointed that there isn't a larger 77-inch, which leaves the A95L alone, because the A95L, in theory, at 77 is still a Gen 2, though many of us think it's a Gen 3. But because of the S95F's matte screen, it really does leave Sony as the only QD-OLED in town at the highest end. we do know that the S90 really can't compare with the flagship S95 or anything from Sony at the flagship level. So it's really the only game in town. FOMO, they'll never do the matte screen because of director's intent. They'll always stick with that. So I'm happy that it's here. I just wish there was another offering, being the 77-inch.
So let's segue into this discussion because the A95L is the 77-inch option, but then let's talk about how is the Bravia 8 Mark II an improvement over the A95L, because many of you will say, well, why don't we save some money and get last year's model, the A95L, which technically is a 2-year-old model now, and I'll tell you why, and this is the only reason to upgrade almost any OLED year to year. There is definitely a improvement in the specular highlights, the overall brightness, and the slight contrast from the panel alone. So Sony did not have to add any additional processing. That will come with its own improvements, but we're
Yeah.
talking about the native 4th gen panel. We saw it in person compared to prior generations of other panels and so forth, and definitely the peak specular highlights have been raised as well as the average picture level of the panel. So if you need that extra brightness, you want the extra brightness, absolutely the Bravia 8 Mark II is what we were hoping to see last year with the A95L Mark II, had it been released. But it is now the Bravia 8 Mark II. But on the other hand, the A95L is still phenomenal TV. It's why I still recommend the LG G4 compared to the G5. The prior year is not a slacker either. It's just if you want that last 1 or 2%, where when I put on Jennifer Gala's content, you will see the differences. But if you're watching Witcher, streaming anything on Netflix, I dare you to see the big difference between the A95L and the Bravia 8. There's not much, but then that applies to the G4 and G5, dare I say G3, right? G3, G4, G5 will all look the same when you watch Columbo or streaming Netflix or whatever.
Columbo.
So when you guys are asking, is it worth upgrading? I always respond, well, what are you watching? They say, well, I'm just watching, let's say I'm watching sports. Then yes, it will be brighter in sports than the A95L. So it's definitely use case specific whether or not you should upgrade. Or if you need a 77-inch, well, you don't have much of a choice. It's the 77-inch A95L.
Yeah.
Or the other brands, right? The 77-inch S95D, S95F.
Yeah. So FOMO, quickly with what we saw that I can't show you is really the comparisons to the competition, where showing what the XR cognitive processor is really capable of beyond upscaling. Really, the images they showed us weren't Sony demos; they were actually films, and it was really the detail within the image. So while we all get hung up on brightness, especially myself and HDR impact, the Gen 4 Mark II can get you that brightness, but it's the detail and that focal point analysis that lives within the image. So whether it was flowers or it was a scene in one of the Marvel movies, you could see that the detail on the mountainside was completely missing on the competition. And the Sony engineers also go in and they show you the settings, so there's no screwing around. So between the Mark 8 and the Bravia 5, they really showed you it's not just the base technology, it's what the processor is doing as it keeps getting updated. And that's what Sony offers that can't be replicated by anybody else. There's some of that over sharpening we talked about, FOMO, but it does really bring, we saw that with their projectors too. It does really bring whatever the image is a picture of is that focal point. And it kind of brings that to the 3-dimensional. So regardless of it, even if the TVs were exactly the same, that processor just behaves differently.
And this is a great comment by Chris Kulig, which also leads to the super chat by Christian, I see you. And it's all related to the concern of a one absolute number that defines the TV. And it doesn't matter what the TV is. So Chris's question is, how many nits on the Bravia 8 Mark II? And for those of you who are new to the channel, what does a nit mean? Nits is a measure of brightness that comes out of a TV, right? So when you hear, oh, 1,000 nits, 2,000 nits, basically it gives you an idea of what the relative brightness of these TVs are. And so Chris wants to know, well, is the Bravia 8 that much brighter? And so here's the limitation of saying nits. Not many of you realize when you hear industry TV reviewers say, oh, this TV could do 5,000 nits. Let me just throw that out there. 5,000 nits, it sounds like a lot, but how big is the window? Is that
Yeah,
on a 50% window or a 1% specular highlight or a
2%,
0.5% specular highlight, right?
half a
And
percent.
no, it's always white. Do you
Yeah,
want super bright white? That is all the nit is measuring, is how bright can that white get. It doesn't tell you how bright the yellow or the blue or the red is. So, and this is how LG often, people don't realize, oh my gosh, I got this amazing bright LG G3 with MLA. And then when they have color content, it's like, wait, why is the flame white? Well, because it can't do yellow
yeah,
that bright. It's
yeah, it's
washed
pushing it.
out, or you
Yeah.
tone map it down so you can see the yellow, but it's no longer as bright as you thought it would be on a 1% window, which takes me to this super chat from Christian. The G5 is a no-brainer this year. And Christian, I'd like to ask you why you think that is. If it's the 77 and 83 inch, absolutely. But at the 65 inch, why is the G5 a no-brainer, right? And I'll tell you my take on this. First of all, it's always going to be HDR impact, which is the G5. They have the brightness, but their color saturation at the highest level will still fall behind Sony's. So what you're going to have is this.
Or
You're going to have
QD-OLED
an
in general.
QD-OLED in general, right? The Sony QD-OLED and Samsung QD-OLED also takes advantage of this. However, with a matte screen, I don't know how competitive that is in a bright room, but let's say in a light-controlled room. So you have the
FOMO.
G5, the S95F, and the Bravia 8 Mark II. You're going to hit, let's say, a scene that hits 1500 nits, right? But the G5 hits that 1500 nits super bright, super hard, and it feels like it's brighter. But then you see the Sony, it doesn't feel as bright, but there's more color in
Yeah.
that bright, whatever, the flame that's moving in the background. The Sony flame and the Samsung flame looks like it's a richer orange, and it looks bright. The G5 is a bit brighter, but it's a more diluted, more like a yellow to white flame.
Yeah.
These are completely different images, and one, what's the creator's intent? So I'll put a reference monitor in that same scene. Let's say the Sony and the Samsung matches that reference monitor better in terms of creator intent, but it's not quite as bright as the monitor. The monitor can get even brighter in those colors, and so the G5 matches the brightness of the monitor, but you've lost so much color. And so it comes to the consumer. Do you defer to that brightness, but you lose color, or you defer to the Sony with all the color, but you lose a little bit of that brightness because ultimately there is always that compromise. And I think this is why many of you need to make the decision. Are you the HDR impact kind of person? Which I hate to say it, I am. And if it's a flash and it's effective, I take the G5. But in a scene where it's just a flame in the background, creating this ongoing sense of emotion or whatever it is, right? The ambiance, then the Sony has it right because it's about the color and the ambiance in the room. So this is something that when you buy a TV, you have to ask yourself, what is your preference? So I ask you, Brian, given you understand these nuances between brightness and color luminance, which one would you choose?
So the big difference before I answer that, and I'm trying to take you into our trip in Japan, and shout out to Joseph from Sony and all the engineering team where we saw where they actually come up with the presets FOMO, is they had a Sony HDR demo from years ago, and some of you have seen it. It's the glass blowing demo. This was a part of that. And what was really eye-opening FOMO, it wasn't just the difference in color luminance, because it really was the Bravia 8 Mark II against the A95L and the competitors, not this year's. But it wasn't that it was brighter. It was just that the saturation of the color looked real. And I think that's Sony's goal is always going to be, how can I make this look real? And it did eye-open things for me simply because I think we're kind of done chasing nits. We see many manufacturers talking about 10,000 nits, 5,000 nits. Then you'll see a full field window of 300 nits, and everyone says, well, that's really low. Well, that means the whole screen. So I
Right.
think we're at the point, especially with OLEDs, where specular highlights are going to be good even on a base TV. Even the A80L behind me's got great specular highlights. To me, the detail is most important and the processing is most important. Where I go for the G5 and where this is a problem for Sony is you don't have the sizes available. You don't have a 77, you don't have an 83, so your clientele has to go elsewhere. You actually don't even have a WOLED this year. Now, neither does Panasonic, and Samsung has a base one somewhere. but you're leaving out a good group of people that would want to get your newest TV. So I do believe the Bravia 8 also carries over because that's their 1W OLED. But FOMO for 83, you got to go back to the TV behind me, which is an A80L. So you're getting a little too far back for that. But I'm going to go for, to answer your question, whatever your specific use case is. I am a high-end PC gamer, so I'm going to, by default, have to go with either Sony, or I'm sorry, Samsung or um, LG for that. And also FOMO for size. I will never go down in
There
size.
you go.
So I do think there is a bit of missing the boat there for Sony, where they know TVs are getting larger. Everyone else has got a 100-inch TV throughout their lineup. So OLEDs we know aren't going to get any larger than they are, but to not have a 77-inch puts you in a bad place, FOMO, because let me ask you, if you're new to the market, do you go back and buy an A95L? It's the only 77-inch QD-OLED available from Sony. Would you go back and buy that TV now?
So
Knowing the fourth
right.
gen exists.
So that question goes into the context of the most disliked channels comment. So we'll take all these TVs into consideration with your question. He said, buy the G5 if you want LG specific features and massive luminance. If you want QD-OLED color luminance, buy the S95F. And I want to add one caveat to the S95F. If it wasn't for the anti-glare, I would say this is actually a legitimate statement because Samsung is known to let their brightness run a little bit wilder than Sony. However, in a room with ambient light, and it doesn't have to be super bright, right? But in a normally lit room with ambient light all around you, the S95F with that anti-glare will lose a little contrast. To me, that's unacceptable because now it's no better than a mini-LED TV. However, in a light-controlled room, the color luminance is going to be great. But we're assuming that the Bravia 8 Mark II doesn't match the S95F's color luminance. Until we have them side by side, I'm going to reserve that judgment. So I think the QD-OLED color luminance also applies to the Bravia 8 Mark II, but up to the 65-inch size. Now, if you're talking about 77-inch, then yes, the only game in town is the S95F. Or, to your point, Brian, what about the 77-inch A95L? So if I watch what my family normally watches, right? Just streaming, K-pop, K-drama, Chinese drama, it doesn't matter. The A95L at 77 inches is absolutely fine. It actually looks identical to the S95F. Now, if you throw in slightly brighter sports, I would get the 77-inch S95F because in a room with ambient lighting, the Sonys get bright, it just isn't aggressively bright. It doesn't want to push the greens and the blue hard to kind of, it modifies the skin tones. And Sony's like, you know what? We're not going to play that game. We're not going to give you super vibrant green grass that's brighter than any other grass out there. But what is the cost? The skins look off. Samsung doesn't care. Samsung is about the grass. I mean, I believe the dynamic mode was defined by grass, right? When they originally designed it, it was at the request of sports broadcaster. We want to see this amazing grass. And they did it, and it worked well because green and blue looks brighter and pushes brightness harder. And so Sony's Vivid mode doesn't do that. And if you're okay with that, then the A95L is fine. And I don't think even at 65-inch, the Bravia 8 Mark II isn't going to push brightness that hard, but nevertheless, just keep that in mind. So I would take the A95L for 77-inch. I'm fine because at the 77-inch size, it feels brighter. But if I need it super bright in a bright room, then you lose contrast with the anti-glare matte screen, the S95F. I'd take the G5 77-inch. Like, you know, it's like the compromises are too much.
So in the matte screen, let's just get this out right now. For a lot of you that are in the talking now, you've seen it in the store, you've seen it in Best Buy. You know, I've seen it. We've tested it. We've reviewed them. We've had them. We just spent time with it, though we can't talk about that because we're under embargo for that, which is ironic.
Which is very ironic.
Which is ironic. But I'll tell you this, for what it's for, in a room with the lights like this, it can't be beat. There is no reflections at all. It looks like a painting. That is their directive. They are trying to sell TVs. Sony really obviously wants to sell TVs and make money. That is not their main objective. Their main objective that brings cinema home is what they live and die by. That's
Yeah.
why they're not going to compromise the image quality to start gaming at 165 hertz. They don't want to lose their focus. So you want to stay with them because they want to have the director's intent. The minute you add a matte screen, you've changed director's intent. A director's going to look at that and go, "The hell is that?
Hmm.
Why is that on there?" So I don't love the matte screen either. I'm just telling you, for what it's for, it's excellent. And if you don't like it, unfortunately, a lot of the manufacturers are going with it for their largest TVs, being TCL, Hisense, and obviously Samsung's whole lineup at the high end is going to be matte. I do love that
Yeah.
Sony's not doing that. So, but in order to get the director's intent, you're going to have to go with it. For me, FOMO, where I struggle with the A95L is me knowing and you knowing that the A95L is a Gen 2 panel and we're not a Gen 4. It makes it very difficult for me. Not because it's just about the brightness, it is the color saturation and is the process, and it goes with that panel. So that's what makes it a little bit hard for someone who says, "Hey, I have an A95L." For such a good TV, one of the best TVs in the world, I feel like Sony kind of put it in a bad spot to feel like it's a leftover. When look, it's long in the tooth. We love it. And
Yep.
I think Robert is probably laughing because he knows the shootout's going to be at 65 inches. So we'll see the Bravia Mark II go against LG, Sony, and Samsung.
And let's just take the context of what you said. Oh, and by the way, if you guys are looking for the Sony actual model details, it's at sony.com. You click on it, you go there, and boom, you can check out all the lineup and the size and the specs that they have available. And my understanding is availability will be coming in several weeks, this week, next week, at any time now, it'll be available. And if you want to be in the first batch of allocations, call our friend Robert Zone at Valley Electronics. He could get you the 98-inch, the Bravia 8 Mark II, all of that, the A95L 77-inch. He normally has priority on allocations, so boom, he'll get that for you.
Yeah.
Now,
And if you want to see the TVs in action, when we're done with this stream, my video will start at 1:30. Where the TVs, please watch that video. It was
1:30 Eastern time?
1:30 Eastern time. That video was hit for copyright, so please hit it. It took me forever, and I fought through the night to keep that video up. But if you want to see the entire lineup, the Bravia 5, the Bravia 2 Mark II is in there, and the Bravia 8, then you'll be able to see what the TVs can really do. Also in there is going to be the Bravia 5 at 98 inches. So you'll see that as well. So we'll remind you that towards the end of the video.
And let me hit some of the super chats, get caught up. Thank you so much for your generosity, everybody. I am Legend, super chat. Thank you. Is Sony doing an actual event today, or did they just drop the 2025 lineup? So they just dropped it. We are the actual event. So we're going to help you answer any questions you may have about the lineup. So I'm Legend. Any questions, any specs, any details, ask us, and we're here for you. This gives us a chance to answer your question and maybe recommend a TV that may not be a Sony, because sometimes it may not be appropriate for your use case. Christian, thank you for another super chat, my friend. Because I want a 77-inch with a glossy panel. I would much rather have a QD-OLED, but that's not happening, I guess. Exactly, Christian. I mean, unfortunately, well,
Yeah.
first of all, you have the S90F. The S90F is QD-OLED. It has a less aggressive anti-glare. Now, to the degree that it's glossy or not, I'm going to have to bring it in. So I'll have that TV in the studio first. I told Samsung, get me the S90F. I would need to see how glossy it is compared to the G5 and the Bravia 8 so I can make my recommendation, because many of you are sensitive to the matte screen. Like, you know how before people are sensitive to motion, stutter, or soap opera? You got some people like, okay, if it's matte, I'm walking that way. And I think that's important to mention because that is on all content, not just HDR, not just SDR, sports, it doesn't matter. If you're in a bright room and that matte bothers you,
Yeah.
you're going to see it. So that's just
Well,
something that I didn't appreciate until Samsung.
the problem, FOMO, with the S90 is that when the first year it came out, they were virtually the same. They were very close. We've seen in the last few years, the delta between the two has grown. And unfortunately, Samsung does tend to hit the S90 with updates and not the S95. So it's very hard for me to say that's going to match the Bravia Mark II. So
Yeah,
you really are stuck in a spot. It's not going to match the G5 either. So it's a
right.
great TV. It's a great bang for the buck. But if you want the best, like Christian wants, there is no option. That's the challenge, and that's where like you're gonna have to go with LG or Panasonic.
And we spoke about this being the cinema enthusiast choice because Sony is kind of like that cinema kind of brand. And if you look at their slogan this year is, bringing cinema home. So this goes to Claymatic Super Chat. Thank you. New OLED, we're talking about the Bravia 8 Mark II, feels like a shootout targeted release. And so if you guys aren't familiar, every year Value Electronics has the King of TVs, TV Shootout. And for the last 2 years, Sony has won. And many people say, well, that's because you're matching a Sony OLED TV to a Sony reference monitor. And, there's a certain level of obvious bias between these two TVs, same company. Now, to your point, rather than saying it's targeted towards winning a shootout, it's targeted towards people who are purists who want their TV to match what is Hollywood's reference monitor. So Hollywood's current HDR reference monitor of choice is the Sony BVM3110. And if you want a TV that most closely matches that, you normally go with, on the mini-LED side, it's the Bravia 9. On the OLED side, this year, I'm predicting, because we don't know if it's going to win or not, it would be the Bravia 8 Mark II, or other potential contenders this year would be the Panasonic Z95B, LG G5, and Samsung S95F. But either way, the cinema enthusiast is all about creator's intent, good or bad, right? Even if the creator screws up, they want to see it the way they intended. And up to this point, the A95L kind of best reflected this. So I think it's okay if you shoot for the shootout, you target the accuracy gain. And Sony's not embarrassed to say, yeah, we want an accurate TV.
Yeah.
Do you think this is fair, Brian, saying that the new OLED Bravia 8 Mark II is targeting a shootout win?
No, I mean, to me, that's actually ridiculous. The Value Electronics TV Shootout is a staple of the TV industry for over 20 years. But to think that a company is actually manufacturing a product on that shootout's absurd. The reference monitor is used in that shootout. It's used in filmmaking. So yes, obviously it's going to look more like that. But their signature has been for many years creator's intent. That's built within before the shootout even existed. We met those people literally in Japan. So they didn't bring up the shootout to us. Now somebody like Panasonic was like, yeah, we're going to win this year. So they might be doing that. I know Samsung and LG, everyone tries to tune their TVs to get it ready for that. But that's not why they're releasing the TVs this way. That's not why there's not a 77-inch. If I'm guessing, and I did bring this up to Sony, you guys are asking if we asked. Every question you guys have, we did ask them. And the reason there isn't a 77-inch, what they could tell me is that the sales don't warrant it. So same with Samsung displays and an 83-inch OLED. We all want these things. But guys, if you don't buy them, that's why you're seeing less TVs in this lineup. It's so expensive to release a new TV every single year. So that's why they are all reacting to our buying habits. It's tough times for everybody out there. So it's going to be hard for somebody to say, hey, the Bravia 9 was great. Let's do another one. And, about repeating TVs, guys, Sony's done this for many, many years with the Master Series, starting with the Z9D, the Z9G, the Z9K, the A9G. The TVs had 2-year lifespans. So I assumed, FOMO, that the Bravia 9 was going to carry over. We thought there might be a 100-inch version, which I really wish there was. But it's just hard, I think, for the companies to continue to release. You're going to see every company release less models. You're seeing that from Samsung this year. Instead of having an 85 and a 95, they only have 3 Neo QLED models this year. So they're all kind of condensing the lineup because once the year is up, FOMO, those TVs are in inventory and they're just losing money. So I think they're all trying to hit it. Now, in my video, what I show is, I think, and Sony did say this to us, bringing cinema home is a 3-year idea for them. That's a 3-year plan for them. Now, that's not saying that the TVs that we see now won't be replaced, but that's why the naming is so odd. They want to start bringing that into this fold. So they are looking this year at the Bravia 9, Bravia 7. All that is one lineup. You match that with their sound bars that have carried over, the quad, the bar 9 is carried over. We have new sound bars and new projectors. Sony looks at that as one unit. They don't really look at it as TV lineup the way we do. When you look at it that way, they actually offer quite a bit.
Correct. They're a very large company that has to ramp their cost, right? I mean, they have to cover sound bars, TVs, projectors, and all of that has to be over several years, not all in one year. So in budgeting for that, this is why you have the staggered launches in both models and size. And getting back to your super chats, I apologize for waiting. Thank you, DP, for your generosity. Here's my situation. Coming from a 77-inch G3, now I am considering a 77-inch A95L or an 83-inch G4. Which do I go with? I watch movies, 4K DVDs, stream movies, shows, Netflix, also some sports, but not hardcore gaming. Immediately I say 83-inch G4. Right there and then, you have a size increase. Boom. And the G4 brings to the table a more consistent image quality. I think the G3 had a few growing pains initially, the G4 fixed, and MLA on the 83-inch is absolutely perfect. I mean, for sports in a bright room, this is my go-to TV. I think you should go for the 83-inch G4, especially given the size increase. That is a winner to me. Now, if you cannot fit a larger size, that's different, but it appears you can. 83-inch G4, I wouldn't think twice. Brian?
If you don't have room, just knock out a wall, and you don't need furniture. So I'll just say it's always, and you got to be up. You got to be up close. You know, I always say when it comes to size, if you have room for the size, go for the size. Moving your chair up close does not make a difference. And if it all depends again. And we always said it depends what you're coming from. If you're coming from a 77, getting another 77 is going to be hard. I'm coming from an 83, and I pre-ordered an 83. So within a month or so, I'm going to get used to that. You always want to go up in size if you can. If you're coming from a smaller TV, then the A95L to me is a more refined TV. But if you can go larger, you know, we always say this, FOMO, the TVs can't grow. They can't get larger. So I think we should move on to the next TV in the lineup, unless you have more super chats you want to catch up on.
Yeah, let me catch up with the super chats, and then we'll talk about the Bravia 5, because I think our enthusiasts, they want to save up for this, but I think you'll have to save up for the Bravia 5 98-inch too. Hey, Getty, thank you for the super chat. When are you going to get the Bravia 8 Mark II, FOMO? So I want to get it as soon as I can, and I'm hoping sometime between May and June. That's my target date to get the Bravia 8 Mark II.
And you know, and this is what we are actually going to see review samples this year. We are going to get them in, and you know, for you guys that know me and Robert hanging out, the minute if he gets that before I do, we'll go right there. We'll live stream it, FOMO. We'll do whatever we got to do. We'll go do it at Roberts. So anything we can get sooner, we'll get at Roberts. But we'll both have it, so we'll be able to compare notes and then compare it to whatever else is going to be in the studios for both of us.
Yep. And Christian, I know he's caught up on the Glossy, so he follows up. Thank you for the super chat.
I can't build it for you, Chris.
I wanted a Glossy S95F over the G5 because QD-OLED, right? And if you guys don't know the differences, I put up a video about the different types of OLED this year. That was my last video, so watch that if you're not familiar with the differences between QD-OLED, WOLED, MLA, and the primary RGB OLED, which is on the G5. I don't think waiting for next year, hoping Samsung changes their mind, is realistic. Correct. I did that last year, yeah. So at the end of the day, S90F may be what you want. However, they're pulling back that brightness compared to the S95F, right? They want to separate the performance of the S95F. So if you want a 77-inch, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait for Sony, which is realistic, to come with a 77-inch possibly next year. I don't have any inside information. And maybe 77-inch is not in the cards at Sony either, but it is more likely you'll get a larger Bravia Mark II than a glossy S95, in my opinion.
Now, FOMO, here's the funny thing is, why would they release one next year? So, I mean, to me, I think they might be done with it. We're starting a speculation already. I think they're done with QD-OLED. QD-OLED is dead. So.
You know what? I honestly don't know.
TV's not even out yet.
If you look at the trend, the buying trend, the buying public wants 85 inches and larger. And there is no 83-inch QD-OLED. And they're not going to waste their time focusing on one size primary RGB OLED. Maybe you're right. Maybe the 85-inch high-end mini LED is where they're going to be next year. I don't know. I cannot wait to see what happens next year from all the brands. But yeah, I'm not going to close the door on a 77-inch. But yeah, it depends on how buyer habits are reflected this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think,
Yeah.
and what Sony has also said, they mentioned that, larger TVs are the way to go, which is why you're seeing so many of them at 85 and now having them at 98. I said, well, for that, if that's the case, why don't we have an OLED at that size? I think they all know that, again, at the price point and what these TVs cost to manufacture. I think we assume, FOMO, that the A95L sold out so fast at 77 that we'd see. I don't know if that was because there was a shortage. We don't know
There
if
was
they
a
sold out,
shortage. Yeah.
but there was a
They
shortage. So it's
sold
not
out
like,
because of the shortage, not because they made too many.
yeah. So, I mean, I think, again, it comes down to, hey, these aren't selling. A lot of us, like, me, I'm talking about 83, like they're selling like hotcakes. They are not. They don't make many of them. None of the companies do. I was willing to get a freaking matte screen to have a QD-OLED. You want glossy, Chris? I was going to go matte, but I'm not getting a matte MLA. I'll tell you, or a matte WOLED. That's for damn sure.
This is a great question from Squatchmat. In a
Great name, by the way.
bright ambient room, and thank you for the super chat. That was very generous, my friend. Sony Bravia 9 or LG G5 or Hisense flagship. New 2025 Sony for sports during the day and darkroom for movies at night. So he wants a little bit of everything because he has light control, but in a bright room during the day, there's no light control. He wants the 83 to 85 inch. So right there, I'm going to have to say LG G5 because of the darkroom watching. In a dark room, OLED is untouchable because you get to appreciate the infinite contrast of OLED TVs. Now, this is assuming that LG fixes that near black shadow detail issues they're currently having, because in a dark room, you're going to see that. In a bright room, the issues may not be as noticeable because normally your eyes with the ambient lighting won't see those details, but in a dark room, you will. Assuming the best, the G5 at 83 inches will be one of the brightest, if not the brightest OLED TVs for sports that matches the Bravia 9. I have no qualms saying that the G5 83-inch brightness, pixel for pixel, is going to be super bright.
The
And
G4 matched it.
oh, the G4 matched it, so the G5 is even brighter. Now, the Hisense is a consideration, but not having seen the U9, which would be 85-inch, I can't recommend a TV that I haven't personally tested. And this year, the U9 is definitely better than last year's U9, which I felt did not perform to the pricing that it was placed at. So I'm assuming this year's U9 was better. Yeah, it was okay, but it wasn't okay. This is not Bravia 9 level. I take the Bravia 9 over last year's U9. The Hisense this year, but if you're open to that, then you have the QM9K at 85-inch. But I'll tell you, both of those TVs off angle will not be even close to the G5 off angle, and the Bravia 9 similarly has that weakness. LCD TVs off angle, you're going to lose a little bit of color saturation.
Even with the HVA panels, which are much better
even with the
now,
all new panel, right?
You're not going to be able to hang with it. It's the Bravia 9, and this is what the Bravia 9 is going to have a hard time this year. Is this competing with every other mini LED that is like juice to the gills? But it's still, again, going to be the most refined mini LED on the market. And Sony is continuing to update it, which is why when you competed it against the QM7K, it performs so well. It's been updated. They update them constantly. So the fact that these are still current TVs, the Bravia 7 and the Bravia 9, they aren't looking at that as, again, big picture, that's their lineup for this year. They're not considering it a carryover. That is a current TV. So expect that to get updated and changed as we go down the line.
Yeah, agreed. And thank you, I Am Legend, for that follow-up. I still have my G3 and might wait until 2026 to upgrade. Yes, do that. I just hate Dolby Vision on its way to dark. Cinema Home Mode makes it look a little bit better. So Dolby Vision is supposed to be creator's intent, and it is dark, because creator's intent means you're in a dark room. When you're sitting in a dark room, it's not as dark as it appears, but in a bright room, you're watching a TV image graded to be watched in a dark room. The gamma is going to be much higher, right? Everything is going to be for you to watch in the dark. And even a moderately lit room, you have to use Cinema Home. So you made the right decision right there. Now, when we talk about upgrading from year to year, the only reason to upgrade if you bought a TV last year is you're ready for a bigger TV. That's immediate satisfaction. You go from, let's say, a 65 to an 83 inch, boom. That's amazing. Or 65 to a 98 inch, even a bigger boom, right? But if you're only 65 to 65, watch that TV until the wheels fall off because the upgrade year to year, same image size is very minimal. I mean, every now and then we have a generational upgrade, like going from WOLED to QD-OLED in 2021, 2022, right? But this year, G4 to G5 isn't a huge generational upgrade. Yes, it's noticeable, but not that noticeable. So yeah, wait for 2026 and you're gonna see RGB mini-LED come out, maybe at the 85 inch. And that could be a game changer if you're all about that immersive cinema movie quality. But Brian, how often do you recommend upgrading? Because kind of like, I don't want people to upgrade when really they're not gonna notice the difference.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard for us because I mean, we're all bleeding edge technology. I like to upgrade more often than not. We don't upgrade that much simply because being in the industry, we don't have time to really watch our TVs, but I'm upgrading from a C1 to a G5. So for me, that was, 3 generations difference. I will tell you that if you have problems with Dolby Vision, it does continue to improve. The implementation is better now from Sony than it was before. It was very dark before. This generation is definitely better.
Yeah.
And it's tough because if you're into this as an enthusiast, you're going to want the best every year. But that also means, FOMO, like you said, you have to watch the content that absolutely pushes it. If you're watching, All in the Family and Columbo and MASH, you're still going to want the upscaling. I watch a lot of Columbo.
Actually, you're absolutely right with upscaling. We need to talk about that in a second. And then we're going to talk about the Bravia 5. I know that there's so much focus on the Bravia 8. Like, here's this question, right? These are like, you guys are flagship enthusiasts. I love it. Okay, guys, and thank you, DP, for another super chat. Thank you, guys. So take out the A95L 77 inch. Now you have the G4 83 inch or the S90F 83 inch. That keeps me in QD-OLED. Right, guys? Thanks as always. So, you're at the 83 inch size, there's no QD-OLED. Unfortunately, QD-OLED is limited in terms of the panel technology. You could only get QD-OLED as a 55, 65, or 77. Nobody has an 83 inch QD-OLED. So your option is the G4 83 inch as a flagship TV or bust. The S95F83 is not QD-OLED. Actually, it's just a WOLED. It doesn't even have primary RGB technology. Your only option at the 83 inch with primary RGB technology is the S95F 83 inch. But then the S95F at 83 inch has the matte coating. So it's either the S95F 83 inch with matte coating.
What a debacle.
Yeah. Which you don't want in a bright room. That's the
word for the day. What a debacle.
Which brand has the debacle? I mean, for some comments, the LG removing DTS is a debacle. Like, oh, no DTS, I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm like, wow. First it's Dolby Vision, now it's DTS. And not to mock their woe, but I guess there's a use case for everyone. I never thought of DTS as a must-have feature, but yeah.
Well, DTS back in the DVD, those super bit, I chased that forever. I could care less now. But to your point, FOMO, it's like running from ex-girlfriend to ex-girlfriend. Like, I'm going to, there really isn't an answer if you want. Like, you can look at the Mark 8 and go, that's the one I want. I want a bigger one. They don't make it. I want one glossy. They don't make this. So it's actually better because, it's like the console wars. It's the PlayStation or Xbox, they're so similar. They all play the same games. Now we're back to having individuals where you have to really choose.
Yep. And
we don't know the prices.
Sean's question is my attitude as well. The Bravia 9 85 inch over the 65 inch Bravia 8 Mark II, I bet the cost difference won't be great. So the 85 inch Bravia 9 is around just under $4,000, right?
Yeah, it's always been affordable.
Yeah. Now the 65 inch would be around $3,000 at launch is my prediction, right? I think it's actually up. Let me check right now.
For the Mark II?
Price. It's up, but I don't see a price. Yeah, the Mark II?
Yeah, you're not going to see prices
yet. Yeah. Well, I'm going to predict it's going to be $3,000. So you're paying about $700 more a few $100s more for the Bravia 9 85-inch, right? And for me, that few $100s is completely worth it for the size immersion. I would go with an 85-inch Bravia 9. I have the Bravia 9 at 65. I love it, but I know that 85-inch is that much better for the immersion, and some even
The
argue
animal.
that the brightness and specular highlights is slightly better on the 85-inch. So it's win-win of the larger size. And although the 65-inch is going to be an amazing TV, I believe immersion trumps the minor improvement in image quality, which I believe at this level, it's minor, right? As much as I love infinite contrast, the Bravia 9 is so good that size will be the decision maker for me. Brian, I
Well,
cannot assume that you would choose an 85-inch LCD
well,
TV.
every time we see, well, you have the reference monitor, but every time we're at an event, everyone looks at the reference monitor, and we were there with a ton of, well, not a ton of media, it was all the media from the US was there, and they're like, kind of small though, isn't it? So, as good as the reference monitor is, there's no way in hell I'm going to buy one and put it on my lap. So, I
Right.
mean, we always say that, a very good larger TV beats an amazing smaller TV, but the Bravia 9 is amazing. So, it's going to win there. And no question, you should buy it.
Right. And
So,
I want
KG,
to answer, hey KG, thanks for joining, buddy. If you don't know, KG is a fellow TV reviewer, YouTuber, and friend. So it's a 25% increase in brightness over the A95L per Sony. Did I hear that correctly? Just trying to get my notes right. So per Sony, it's a 50% increase over the Bravia 8 Mark 1, right? So the Bravia 8 Mark 2, 50% increase in brightness over the Bravia 8 Mark 1. But per Sony, it is brighter than the A95L, although they didn't share any kind of percentage increases, but it is brighter and better contrast over the A95L. And obviously, we'll have to measure it ourselves to see what that true percentage is. But as you know, scene to scene, everything changes. But generally, it is brighter than the A95L and better contrast over the A95L thanks to the latest 4th generation QD-OLED. Man, Bravia 5. Let me kind of bring this up because I know you guys are so caught up about the Bravia 8 Mark II limited to 55 and 65, which to me is a disappointment as well, by the way. But to be fair, the 65-inch size is still the most popular size, and together 55 and 65 sell more TVs than 77 and 83. So I see where Sony is going with this. If you're going to budget accordingly, they would rather release an updated Bravia 8 Mark II at these sizes for now and then see how it goes before they release the 77. But if you need large, and so here's the question, 55, 65-inch Bravia 8 Mark II or a 98-inch Bravia 5, similar pricing. I don't know the pricing, but I'm just going to throw it out there that the Bravia 5 Mark 98-inch might be similar in price to the 65-inch Bravia 8, maybe a little bit more expensive. I would go with a 98-inch all day long because Sony fans, right? You guys want that Sony look, but you want immersion. 98 inches is where it's at for me. Now, this is going to compete against other excellent mini-LED TVs from TCL, Hisense, and Samsung, and LG. So we'll start with LG. They definitely upped their 98-inch game this year. They've improved it over last year's 98-inch, 100-inch. So their flagship 98-inch size, 98 or 100, I forgot. Remember, is the LG flagship QNED 100-inch this year,
100.
Brian, or 98?
There is
100,
100.
right? So Bravia 5 will go up against LG's 100-inch, and it'll be similar in price to Bravia 5 is my prediction, against Samsung's QN90F at, was it 98 inches or one? Yeah. Oh, and the Q90F goes up to 115-inch, which excites me as well. 98
Q90F is
115.
115. The
And
S80,
98.
it's no, the Q80 is also 100 inches.
But the QN90F, the QN90F
is 115.
what 115 and 98
It goes up to,
and 98.
yeah. Yes.
Now that one's going to be more expensive than the Bravia 5 because
Yeah,
the
it's the flagship.
QN90F goes against the Bravia 7,
It'll be like,
which
it'll be,
stops at 85. And so I think the Bravia 5 is looking for the entry-level mini-LED competitor in the QM7K, the U7, U8 by Hisense, and that's going to be interesting because Sony is going to rely heavily on its color accuracy and skin tones, but it won't be the absolute last word in brightness, but it will be brighter than what the
Yeah.
X90L was. And for
Yeah.
context, when the X90L was released about 2 years ago, I was so impressed that it matched the QM8 from TCL and the U8 from Hisense scene for scene, with its only drawback being the black bars. That's the only time it fell a little short, but when it's full screen, just as good, almost as bright, if not as bright more often than not. So the Bravia 5, ironically, is going to be Sony's giant killer. Wait, when have we ever described Sony
Yeah.
trying to beat the giants, which this year, I think Hisense and TCL are the giants?
So the funny thing is, and real quick shout out to Alice who is helping me free my video. Thank you, Alice. Say hi to
Free,
JT. And
free my people.
say hello to tell us, and we'll also say hello to JT, Tim, and Trey that are watching. My boy Andrew is watching. I'm sure Mara is there watching. So thank you to the Sony team who's trying to free my video from its clutches of copyright. But the Bravia 5, to put it in proper context, is the successor to the very popular X90, which started with the X90J, K, and then the L. And what always happens with the X90 series, it starts a little bit more expensive, and then towards the end of the year, FOMO, it's the most popular TV of the year. Everyone wants it because it is the beginning of XR cognitive processor from Sony. That's where it starts, and unlike the other models from Samsung and others, the processor starts there and goes to the flagship. So what you always get is the best processing. So where it will beat all the other larger TVs is it will have the best processor. Even Samsung's larger 98 and 115 won't have the best processing from from Samsung. That's to the 8K TV. What's up, Larry? Larry from Sony's here too. So that's what really sets the X90 apart. Whether it can compete with zones and that, it really typically doesn't. It's in processing. What the Bravia 5 does different is now it is mini LED. We also have the backlight master drive. When I was in Manhattan, that's where I saw the best side-by-sides foam. Unfortunately, you weren't at that event. They did show, I believe Tim showed us, it was the largest. It wasn't the largest. It might have been an 85. No, it was the largest. It went against the competition at that size, and it really hung in there with its local dimming, which is something that the X90 kind of struggled with because of the zone count. So I think you're going to be very surprised of its performance. My fear for the Bravia 5 is it is 98 inches versus the other monsters. But again, at the end of the year, when it's a better value at the smaller sizes, it will rise to the top because, again, it's the entry point for the XR cognitive processor, which does set it apart from every other TV from every other manufacturer.
Yep.
That's what I saw, and that's what makes me excited about the X90 L2 FOMO is that that's the model that you'd see in Costco in the big box stores. I'm hoping to see
I expect the Bravia 5 98-inch at Costco. That's what I expect.
Yeah, and I think seeing the Bravia 5 there, and actually most of Sony's lineup is now at those stores, is great because it's not this obscure model. I think that's going to be the big seller. What I love about what they're doing, and we saw this in Japan, is now their entire lineup is the Bravia 5, Bravia 7, and Bravia 9. So the steps are excellent. I can't wait to compete the Bravia 5 to the Bravia 7. I'm excited about the Bravia 5, especially not just at the larger sizes, but all its sizes.
And Chris Kelly has a great comment. If I could afford a QD-OLED, I'd rather relocate my speakers and get a 65-inch Bravia 8 Mark II and sit a little closer than get a 77-inch A95L. And so this goes to preferences, right? Your living situation, your comfort level, sitting a little closer, no problem. If anything, that's great because you'll appreciate the finer details of a better TV when you sit closer. So that's quite all right, my friend. Now, speaking of processing, Isaac says, FOMO, tweaking XR chip, 4 years already. How long before the fine-tuning becomes irrelevant and a new processor is needed? So Isaac, we got some good news or some bad news. The good news is when it comes to image processing, or rather the software, XR software chip, tweaking it doesn't take that much processing. It's more of that algorithm that chooses when to tone map, how to push the colors, how to sharpen, how to do the highlights, right? you could probably do that on an older chip for a while. What
Yeah.
is needed for a new processor is AI tuning. AI takes up a lot of processing power because it's going to be a lot of it will be local AI processing, and Samsung and LG have already announced it's all about AI. And so it has to update its chip to run these AIs, and it has to be run off the cloud right now. So even the latest chip from Samsung and LG, if you're not connected to the internet, its AI processing is limited, severely limited. So Sony is figuring that out. How much of it needs to be done on the AI chip at the local level, and how much of it needs to be sent to the cloud. And so yes, they're going to need a new processor, but that's mostly to drive these AI stuff, AI commands, AI tuning, like Samsung has their upscaling, it's AI driven, that's local,
Yeah.
and that requires AI. If you notice, Sony doesn't mention any AI upscaling because their chip is about color science and the like, and they've already pre-engineered how that tuning is going to be without adjusting it over time on the
Yeah.
fly because they feel, you know what, we know what we're doing with this approach. And so,
Yeah.
but in the future, 2 or 3 years from now, they may end up doing AI tuning.
Yeah, and what's great about that question too, Isaac, and I get that. And again, this is where I wish you guys could be with us in these rooms, talking to the engineers, the people that build the processors. We ask them as well, and the fact is, the retuning is not just hey, we just tweaked it. They do go in and overhaul them, so it's not like it's like just pass it on. I mean, you'll see every manufacturer say they're retuning it. They can easily slap another name on it, but their processors carry over because they continue to change them, make them more elegant. So I don't think you need it. And all this AI, Cyberdyne, Terminator settings that people, AI, my phone's got AI, my water bottle's got AI. Let's wait and see what it really
My
does.
water bottle's got
I mean,
AI.
my Bronco's got some AI. I mean, like, Jesus. I put AI in
Oh,
everything.
my
My glasses have
gloves
AI.
got AI, right? Here's another good question. I
Come
think this
on,
is
let's do
one
it.
that Sony loves to hear. Is the Bravia 8 Mark II going to be brighter than the LG G5? And so this goes to how many nits does it have? If the content demands accuracy, the Bravia 8 Mark II and the G5 will look identical. Now, in sports, where you want to unleash as bright as possible in sports or vivid mode, the answer is no. The Bravia 8 Mark II cannot compete with the G5 in its brightest vivid mode, but in accurate filmmaker mode, it's going to be the same unless you have content that exceeds the brightness capability of what the Bravia 8 is capable of. The G5 will be quote unquote brighter,
Yeah.
but what if you lose color at that brightness? So it's a very nuanced question,
Yeah.
and we're going to have to put it side by side. I don't dare say yes or no without putting in content. And I can say, oh, well, in this content, the G5 is brighter, but this is a compromise. On the flip side,
Yeah.
the Bravia 8 is brighter here, but the G5 chose to do this. And then you have
Yeah.
to choose which of those compromises apply to your use case, because if you never watch bright image type of stuff like Jennifer Gala, Alpha, Mad Max Fury Road. I mean, I'm going to list less than a handful of movies where you need that level of brightness. It is not even going to be relevant to you. However, again,
Yeah.
sports brightness, gaming brightness, I get it. And we'll see how the
Yeah.
G5 and the Bravia 8 Mark II do.
So I'll say quickly with the Bravia 8 Mark II and the Bravia 5, what they did this year, which is what they did last year with the Bravia 9 with the Road Show, was they showed the gradients and the resolving of bright images. And we haven't really talked about that. We've talked about color. We've talked about vibrance. We haven't talked about gradients and leaving. It's like the Alpha, the Academy Award winning film about cavemen, that shot in the sun that is resolved by even their projectors have resolved that detail. That's what you want to see. Now, what you guys don't understand, it's not just about color, but you'll see that sun won't just be white, it'll just be a blob. And it was like that on the competitor QD-OLED as well. So it's really about not just the brightness, it's about them keeping the gradients intact. They have those different you know uh, charts FOMO that show the gradients per nit. They can
Mm-hmm.
take it down just like the reference monitor. That's why they tune the TVs the way they do. The biggest trip of biggest treat of Japan was being in that tuning room where they actually tune the presets, and they want to get that TV. So even if the TV could be bright, whether it's the RGB mini LED, Sony is not going to compromise the image quality. Like, so
Right.
even with their mini LEDs, why is there a little bit more blooming on Sony's? They will not crush the detail like a lot of other manufacturers with more zones. So that's the best part about the Bravia 5 is you are going to get a higher zone count. You'll have the mini LEDs, but more importantly, the local dimming with the backlight master drive is better, but they're never going to get rid of the detail. And that's what you have to know if you're going to choose a Sony. It's not about brighter, it's about the detail. That's why the Bravia 9 is so good. You're not going for the brightest mini LED in history. The Bravia 9 is not that. What you're going for is the the best refined mini LED, and that's the Bravia 9. For those reasons,
And,
that's why you choose
and
them.
And speaking of the Bravia 5, Paul Lorraine has the big picture question. What's best between the Bravia 9, Bravia 5, and Bravia 7, let's say among the 85-inch size? And this goes to answer the more general question, what are the differences between 5, 7, and 9? Like, what are you upgrading? So starting with the Bravia 5, it is definitely an upgrade over the X90L. It adds mini LED, it adds 6 times more dimming zones, so it gives it better blooming control, better black levels, more importantly, better specular highlights, and it's overall a little bit brighter. When you get to the 7, it's a little bit more of all of that. Specular highlights are that much slightly brighter. Overall image, let's say in sports mode, is a little bit brighter. And the Bravia 9, I think it's a generational jump over the 7 because it adds wide angle viewing that's a
Yep, that's the
bit
big one.
better than
Yep.
either 5 or the 7. And your specular highlights against the black will be near OLED-like. The Bravia 5 and the Bravia 7 are not trying to be OLED. They just don't have the chops nor the budget to do it, but it looks really good. The Bravia 9 is trying to say, look, we look just as good as OLED when you have these dark scenes where you normally see blooming. We don't have it. And in these scenes where it's bright, specular highlights, all that stuff, we have it. So the 5 and 7 are playing with more compromises. The 9, less so. But then, you're paying a little bit as you go up and up. So I like going from the Bravia 5 to the Bravia 9, only because I can see that jump significantly. The 7 is going to have the best specular highlights of the group. It's willing to give up a little bit of that perfect black uniformity and perfect blooming control to make the specular highlights brighter. If you saw my review comparing the 7 and the 7 had slightly better specular highlights, but the 9 had near perfect uniformity, black level, and blooming control. So it looks more OLED-like. So it depends on your viewing situation and your preferences, but each one brings that level of strength to the table for your budget. But
Yeah, and there's different sizes available too, FOMO. The Bravia 9 starts at 65. You do have a 55-inch Bravia 5 and a 55-inch Bravia 7, I believe. I think there's 55.
and if you want 98, it's a Bravia 5.
And a 98. So, that's where you can that's your budget is going to go along with that as well.
And here we have Tyrus. Oh, I haven't
Tyrus,
seen you
how
in a
are you?
while, my friend. Yes, it's been a while. Hey, guys.
Are
Thank
you,
for the
Terrence? We
super
have to
chat.
go to his pub, right? He's got a
His
pub
bar,
somewhere.
his pub in Buffalo,
Terrence,
New
is
York.
that in Buffalo? We remember everybody. 1,000 people. I'm like, what's up, Terrence?
He's got a bar in Buffalo. I think it's Buffalo.
My man
right?
bought an
It's
A80L.
upstate.
Sony, if you're listening, I brought that TV back to life, baby. 83-inch. Let's go.
Hey guys, I followed Brian's lead and got the 83-inch A80L. Do you think pulling the trigger on a G5 83-inch would be a meaningful upgrade for more brightness? Absolutely. You're going from a WOLED with no MLA, no nothing, just straight up beautiful Sony contrast, infinite,
Oh, she's right behind me.
Right there, right there. She's gonna be replaced.
You're talking about my girl. She's in the background.
And I know Taurus is a sports bar.
Sorry, baby
that
girl.
G5 83-inch is gonna blow across that room. It'll be yes. The answer is yes, yes, yes. The only question is, G4 or G5. Save $1,000, go G4, or get that little extra brightness with extra contrast in vivid or sports mode that the G4 will lose a bit of at that level of brightness. That's it. But yes, I love the G5 83-inch. I know Brian is just cannot wait to get his greedy little hands on the 83-inch G5.
Yeah, but I would tell you guys, I pre-ordered it. Mine was due to be here Friday. So I'm actually, Robert's going to get me in the second allocation so I can actually test it. Because we're going to have an event where we compare them. So I'm actually going to hold off, not to buy it, but I'll go for the second allocation just so I can test the things that we're looking at. But yeah, I'm
And
looking for it.
yeah.
But
And here's a
A80L is
question.
still a beast, and it carries over. The A80L is current.
83 inches. Well, if you need 83-inch cinema and you're not like, I need bright sports, the
Oh, dude,
A80L
it's
is
great.
fine. It
And
looks
it's
great.
great. I'll tell you right now, the A80L is amazing. And one thing Sony does better than anybody is the set it and forget it, where you put it on, whatever setting you like and just leave it there. I watch it every day. I love the TV. I'm not even going to replace this with the G5. That's going to my house to replace a C1. So the G5 is not replacing the A80L. It's replacing a C1.
Yeah, agreed.
It's okay, sweetheart. Love
And
you, boo.
this is a popular question about Sony. Could the Master Series continue or come back? Asks
It's
Arden.
here. It's
Well,
here.
so Sony has retired the word Master Series from their TVs as a label. Master Series, if you remember way back when, recognizes the flagship. This is a Master Series, right? So today they don't use Master Series, but they'll say like, oh, this TV has Master Backlight or Backlight Master Drive in the technology. So the name is in the features, but now you just look at the actual number. Oh, Bravia 9, that's the highest number, that's the top of the line. Or in this case, Bravia 8 Mark II, well, Bravia 8 is better than the Bravia 7, and the A95L was never called a Master Series. It was just their best flagship OLED. Now we called it the Master Series because it followed the A95K, A90J, and I think A90J was the last time Master Series was used in their marketing. But then when we got to the A95K and the A95L, I think they stopped using the word Master Series, but we know that it's the best. So it may come back in the future, just not this year. It's not being used to label as this is the best. You just look
No,
at the numbers.
and I asked them about that last year, and they simply said that and we saw that with the Miro up in Japan, that the quality, assurance of it is not the Master Series about like, hey, we took 3 panels, we kept 1. So we saw that they're doing that across the board now from top to bottom, be it the Bravia 5 and up. They're still using those same techniques they used on the Master Series. They're just not calling it a Master Series. We saw that with the X95L phone. Well, that's not a Master Series. They just don't have that name anymore. So they're still considering their flagships to be Master Series. That would, in this case, be the Mark II from the Bravia 8 and the Bravia 9 would, in essence, be Master Series if they were going to call it that. Because the Master Series always had different build quality. Now they're all just considered that. They're just not delineating it with that word anymore, which might be a little divisive.
Yeah, like, here we go, Bravia 10, 98-inch Master Blaster. But if it's releasing
Master Blaster, Tina Turner from Mad
Tina
Max.
Turner,
Master Blaster.
Mad Max, what is it? Welcome to the Thunderdome. We don't need another hero. Oh, we are so aging ourselves.
We're so not drinking it in the morning.
Just to let you know, Angeles Torres and Sony, I'm talking to you, looking at you. If you are releasing a large size flagship in 2026 or 2027, 100 inches is too small. By that time, you got to have a 110 to 115. Just FYI. I mean, I sound crazy saying it now. In 2 years, people be like, 100 inches, what is this? 2021?
That's like saying the average height is 6'4".
Yeah.
Sorry, short guy, 6'4" is too small. So
here's a good question. Thank you for this. C4, I'm sorry, the C5, 2025, LG C5, or last year's G4. The G4 is cheaper. Which to get? Absolutely the G4. The G4 is the C5W OLED with an MLA layer. That's way better. The C5 is very similar to the C4. Yeah, it's got some AI features, if that's important to you. And, they got some software tweaks to make it slightly brighter, but it has no MLA. It cannot even come close to the G4. Get the G4, enjoy its brightness and processing and everything that's good about the G4. It is a great TV, better than the C5. Do you agree, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean the C5 is awesome. It's incremental. It's got the brightness booster technology, which gets better, maybe 5-10% by software, but it's not really It's not going to compete with the G4. Real quick, I want to give 69 Dart Man a shout out. Terry, what's up, Terry? The reason why, and I want Sony to hear this if they're listening, Terry bought the Z9K. And he still got that bad boy. And every year he's got the white knuckles of his TV current. And since Sony's not doing 8K anymore, Terry, I think you are safe, my friend. You will always have a current Sony Master Series with the Z9K. And I know he's laughing. So I want to give Terry some love because we see him all the time. But he always is like, hey, I think I still got a current TV. 10 years, my man, that TV will still
literally,
be
it is the last great
brand
8K
new, baby.
TV from Sony. Yep.
You're going to have the 85-inch from Robert. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Jason, for the super chat. My 83-inch G5 is coming on April 12th. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Hey, you're welcome. Congratulations. You scooped Brian. He's been hoping to get that 83-inch ASAP.
Supposed to be Friday. But oh well.
And Travis, hey,
Travis, how you
old-timer.
been?
What is the best price to performance 98-inch TV for 2025? I believe it's going to be the QM6K, or I haven't seen it yet, but I need to see the Hisense U6Q. The 98-inch for the QM6K is going to be so much TV for, like, it does everything right. It may be a little weak in the specular highlights, but its dark screen uniformity, its near black performance is so good for an entry-level mini LED. Now, possibly the QM7K at 98 inches will get you that specular highlight you need, but you're going to pay about $4,000 or actually $3,500 for that, maybe $2,000. But then this TV, the 98-inch, will be down to actually a little over $2,000. The QM7K will be about $1,000 more. Is that $1,000 justified? If you need specular highlights, maybe, but the QM6K and I'm hoping the Hisense U6K, they're going to be the ones to look at as far as the best price to performance. And Brian, you've seen the TVs at that size, at the Hisense event, the TCL event. What are your thoughts about best price to performance? Do they need to go up from their 6 series?
I mean, well, I didn't see the 98-inch versions. I saw the 100-inch version. I hope you guys both like.
Oh yeah, 100-inch. I meant the 100-inch U6. Yeah,
they're matte. So we're back into that debacle of
they're matte.
You're like, come on. You can't escape it, baby.
Wait, unless you get the Bravia 5 98-inch, which is not.
Which is 98. Right back to the Sony conversation. Yeah, they're going to, I don't know why they have them matte at that sizes, but they do. So, what's up, Terry? He's watching us on the first gen. Yeah, that's the first mini LED in history.
Ever introduced in the USA. Yeah, he's cutting edge.
He's got a Z9. Terry, you better hit up Robert and try to get yourself the 85-inch Z9K. I know he's got one somewhere.
All right. What's the black issues with the G5 that Vincent was hollering about? And it's not just Vincent. It's HDTV Test as well as AV Forums. They did a review and they recognize the same thing. So near black, the LG has problems stabilizing that shadow detail. So you have what they call black crawl, where it's shifting back and forth between that gray and then that black, and it looks like a macro blocking in black, and it cannot come out of black smoothly. Instead, as it comes out of black, it's like herky-jerky, splotchy, and then it gets out of black. And so that's something that we saw in the C10, right, Brian? And
yeah, so I can speak to it, unfortunately. If I had it on the CX or the C10, you want to call it, the problem is if it's an OLED, its only real strength is black level. So when you have black level issues, the floating blacks look like venom. So you can have floating blacks like little black grayish triangles. Then you have like a venom, literally, where it goes across your screen. And I returned the CX after a few months. I just couldn't handle it. So if that's an issue, that is a game-breaking issue. The OLEDs serve no point if they can't do black. Like they literally defeat the entire purpose. So, Jimmy says he doesn't have it on his G5. He's in the Netherlands, I believe. They have it there. I'll see this weekend and I'll be able to figure it out.
He'll test it.
And then LG is working on it. I've talked to them, so hopefully they can fix it. Otherwise, that is a no bueno. I mean, if you can't do black levels on an OLED, it really defeats the purpose.
Hopefully everything works out well for you this weekend when you play with Brian's going to choose games that specifically exposes those issues.
The intro in Modern Warfare had it, and actually the intro into Gears of War 4 had it. So I have both those games downloaded. I don't have to put them on PC. It'll be on
Yeah.
console. All right, guys, we're at 1:15. My video goes live at 1:30. So let's
All
we're gonna
right.
wrap
Yeah,
it
we're
up.
going
Do
to
you have
wrap
any
it up in a
questions?
few minutes. I'll see you there.
Now, what do you guys honestly think? Again, Sony does listen and does go back and check out these comments. We have some of them even in the chat. Really be honest about what your feedback is. Sony is the one and only company that we deal with and that I have personally dealt with that really wants to know what you think. They never ask what we think. They always say, what do you guys think? So, doesn't matter, try to keep it civilized, but really share what you think. They do want to know.
Yep.
And they do try to aim for that. So put in the comments what you think, how you think the lineup and even their strategy of releasing later. Just really put out what you think, and they'll go back and check them out.
Yep. And we're going to catch up with a lot of your questions before we end in about 5-10 minutes so we can get over to Brian. So this stream will then redirect you to Brian's premiere as soon as it's done. So hang out, guys, and we'll join you in chat on Brian's premiere. Clayton asks, does anyone know when the Panasonic will release their TVs? So we know for sure that the shootout is July 12th, right? That's the TV shootout. It will include the Panasonic Z95B, and Panasonic has assured us that they will release their TV long before the shootout. So take that as you will exactly when. But my guess is early summer, late spring, we'll have it. Here's a great question. What is the best for gaming and movies, QD-OLED or mini-LED? So with gaming, QD-OLED will offer you, as well as any OLED from LG, QD-OLED or WOLED offers you the fastest, lowest latency for gaming, period. Mini-LED, because of all of its complexity, can never have its latency as low as OLED while preserving image quality, contrast, all that good stuff. So with gaming in mind, it has to be QD-OLED. And then when you throw in movies, well, QD-OLED will give you perfect infinite contrast, off-angle viewing. So the best for both, you got to go with QD-OLED. And does the Theater Quad come with any improvements this year? Man, these people are so demanding. It was just released last year.
and it's awesome. Actually, I hooked up my HTA 9 yesterday, and that has improved a lot. But the quad is awesome. So, I mean, I'm not sure how it's going to improve.
So,
I mean, that Phantom Center is incredible.
And to be fair to Sony, a lot of the improvements are coming with software. So their firmware updates get it better. They will introduce new formats if necessary, right? The processing is constantly improving. The hardware stays the same. But what you got with the quad at the beginning of the year and 2 years later, completely different performance, even though the hardware is the same. So the answer would be yes. I expect even more precision in the ambiance management, more features. I have the quad. I love it. It is my current reference total immersion soundbar replacement. Highly recommended. And thank you for that super chat, Doug Shannon. I currently have a G4 83-inch in my home theater. Congratulations. And want to replace it with a 115-inch or larger TV. What do you guys think is the best option this year? So the only option is the 116-inch Hisense RGB mini-LED. And Brian, what did they tell you? When did they tell you it would be released? The 116-inch UX RGB.
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
8 weeks, yeah, it'll be
8 weeks, so June.
Yep.
Sometime in June, you're going to have a flagship RGB mini-LED at 116-inch. And the only other sizes, other brands and models competitive with this is TCL has a 115-inch, but it's a QM7K, not even close to performance. And then you have last year's 110-inch or 115-inch, yeah, QM8K from last year. And now you have the UX RGB mini-LED. So you can guess those are your best options. What do you guys think? And what will I be giving up in picture quality? So OLED being what it is, you will give up OLED's black level, zero blooming. All these TVs off angle, you may notice a little blooming, but the immersion more than trumps it. I think it's worth, if you can afford it, upgrade, get that 115-inch RGB mini LED, and then say, hey, I don't need to get another Porsche. I'll just get this TV. Not to say it's not expensive, but I think it's probably going to be between 15 grand and 20 grand.
You can shut off your heat too. Just sit in front of it. Tell the family, cuddle in front of it, stay nice and warm. I mean, you're to the point. The immersion is key. I mean, we get to that size as long as you have this. And now keep in mind, these are a couple 100 pounds. So this is not like, these are not light. And they are like the 115-inch in Robert's store. It looks ridiculous. It's so big.
Oh yeah.
Even on a small table, it's like 3 inches taller than me.
Oh, it's amazing. And let's go over here. Thank you for that super chat, Arjun. Which to buy? Question. Need a 77-inch, preferably OLED, $5,000 budget. Streaming Netflix, Apple Plus, watching sports, and hate the S90D's anti-reflective. Well, with that budget, you can get an LG G5. I think that's it. The G5 does everything you've just listed. And the watching sports is going to amaze you. I think that's going to be the best sports watching TV period for 2025, and that's the G5. Brian, do you have any alternatives you might want him to consider?
Unfortunately not. I mean, if you want OLED, that's the problem. If you want to go mini LED, I can get you to the cows come home. You want to go OLED, it really is limited. I love this comment from Sean. Sean said, trading my truck in for 155-inch TV, I can use Uber.
There you go, right? Or trading your
That's
Miata
what I'm talking about. You
right?
don't need that. Stupid car. Truck.
And I am putting up the link to your premiere video that follows this. So if you stay on our live stream, we're going to redirect you to Brian's premiere, but I've also posted it right here for you guys. Check it out.
Guys, please check it out. Your boy was up for 24 hours. I have not slept yet.
Well, not only that, you had to fight the man. You had to contact Japan. You did an all-nighter, and that's why
Alice is on it. She's got me. So I mean, I'm glad
your eyes are glazed over. I don't think you had any sleep, right?
No. I mean, look, you guys are worth it. And this day, we appreciate you guys being in here. We had 1,200 people at one point. We still got 600. Please hit like on this live stream. We'll spend the whole day with you. We really, really appreciate it. And keep in mind, this is just our launch event. We have the TVs coming soon. We're going to cover them from every angle, and we appreciate you guys being here.
So Valentin has a good question, and it's going to be a little bit nuanced. Hi guys, what's the best 55-inch LED TV on the market these days? So if you mean LED TV to include OLED, then it has to be the 55-inch G5 or the S95F with the anti-glare, that's great for a dark room, or Sony's Bravia 8 Mark II. But if you mean 55-inch LED, that's an LCD TV, mini LED, then you're limited to, I'd say, something from Hisense or TCL, right, Brian? I believe the TCL's QM7K comes in a 55-inch. That's going to be a good TV.
Bravia 7's 55, X90.
Bravia 7's 55. Yes.
Thanks,
and this may be the last year of good 55-inch as well. As we move on, it becomes less and less, unfortunately. And all right, we're going to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes. So bring your questions. I just want to give you guys a heads up. In 5 minutes, we're going to head over to Brian's premiere. And this live stream will redirect you to that premiere. So you can hang out and chat, and then boom, you'll be there.
You have a little bit of an intro to eat some popcorn, let it populate. You'll have 5 minutes to go to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah. Go to the bathroom. I haven't gone to the bathroom since I got
Just go here. I'm not even wearing pants. It's like the newscaster wearing boxers. Come on.
And this is where I think everything is going. That's why I was telling Sony earlier, when you release your flagship mini LED next year or the year after, you got to go larger than 85-inch. You might have to go larger than 98-inch. Matt says the 85, 98-inch X11K, once the prices come down, could be the mini LED to beat, unless the QM9K comes out better. And that's the beauty of it, Matt. I have my suspicion that the QM9K is going to be better, but that's just me. I have no inside information, but when I was at CES, it just felt that the QM9K had it because the X11K, it feels to me, the focus was on cinema, whereas the QM9K wanted to impress you with gaming as well. So depending on your use case, TCL appears to be focusing on cinema movie watching like a Sony Bravia with the X11K, whereas the QM9K is the jack of all trades flagship. But we'll see. We'll try to get access to both TVs and do a real comparison for you guys. And Doug Shannon, yes, to your point, will Sony ever release a 115-inch plus TV? The answer is absolutely. I just don't know when. Can they get one out in time by next year?
RGB, maybe.
RGB mini-LED, baby, right? We know they have RGB mini-LED. They announced that it's a 2026 technology. The question is, will it come in a 115-inch first, or will it come in an 85-inch first? But that 115-inch is designed for RGB mini-LED. And we know that for a fact because Hisense is producing it right now at their facilities, at their production manufacturing in China. So Sony knows that's kind of like the benchmark being talked about in 2025 when Hisense releases it in 8 weeks. So, wow, that bar is moving fast, Brian, I have to say. I have never seen the bar move so quickly up and up at all ends, from entry level all the way up to the high end.
What's funny, we literally said mini LEDs were dead a few years ago, and now it's like, and that's what my concern with them carrying over the Bravia 9 and the Bravia 7, but they are excellent. Again, they'll continue to update them.
Yep. And Tom has the question that I have. What are the odds that the Panasonic Z95B can win some use cases over the G5? So both of them share the same panel technology, primary RGB tandem OLED. And last year, the Z95A shared with the G4, both using MLA. I felt the Z95A was the better movie watching TV than the G4. It felt like the color saturation, the color accuracy, everything out of the box was better than the G4. So with the same technology, Panasonic proved that it had the cinema Sony approach to, hey, this is just fun to watch movies because it feels more, everything feels like it's how do we describe it? It's more polished out of the box. You don't need it to be calibrated as much. I think the G5 and the Z95B will be in the same position.
Well, you really liked. Well, last year you really liked the Z95A better than the G4.
I did.
So
I chose
we always
it.
say with Panasonic, it's all about can Panasonic out Sony. So if you really want a Sony tandem primary 4-layer cake OLED, that's the way to go because they'll give you that director's intent, and they're also very gamer centric as well.
Yep. The only thing is Fire TV or WebOS. That is the question. And Ip Romer, thank you for this question. Saving up to upgrade my 75-inch X90L, 85-inch Bravia 9,
great question.
98-inch. You know what I'm going to say. 98-inch Bravia 5.
Yeah, dude.
Because you're already used to the X90L. The Bravia 5 takes what you're used to, elevates it, but that immersion that's it. That's the tangible improvement that goes beyond subjectivity. It is so obvious. Please get the 98-inch Bravia 5. Reach out to Robert at Valley Electronics, ask for the FOMO deal, and he'll give you something special with a 10% store credit. Trust me on that.
And I love that you're keeping that in the family. Nothing's better than like, hey, I have a Sony this, and then I'm getting the, you're going to love it. You'll be very familiar with it. You'll have all new settings to play with, but that's pretty cool that you're going to go from that to the Bravia 5. And the Bravia 9 is amazing, and 75 to 85 is a big jump, but I'd love to see you go all the way to the Bravia 5 at 98. You're going to love it.
And this is a great question from another old viewer, Ephraim. When will Brian do a stress test on the Sony TVs? So there are two types of stress tests that we do. For me, it's all about HDR performance with Jennifer Gala's content. For Brian, it's about gaming. So you will see Brian stress test his Sony with the gaming stuff to see, hey, does image quality suffer? How about latency? Brian's got the PC rig set up, ready to go to push it to the breaking point. I love it.
And the content foam. I mean, again, with people always say they want to see movies. Don't do movies. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not risking that ever again. When it comes to Jen's Gala's content from 5,000 nits to 10,000 nits, you'll see that, and you'll see that as soon as we get the review samples from Sony. You'll see that, and again, if Robert has them first, I'll go down there immediately and I'll get that for you. And we're going to hit these TVs at different sizes. Robert will probably have the Bravia 5 at 98 without fail, and we're going to cover it all. So,
And we'll
Stay
take
tuned.
this last super chat before we head over to Brian's channel. Thank you, Hector, for the super chat. Is QD-OLED burn-in still more of a concern than WOLED? A little hesitant to make that jump. So here is the thing, Hector. A lot of people complain, wait, why is Sony slightly dimmer than Samsung? Part of that is Sony is also focused on longevity, right? They're like, you know what? Why are we making it brighter than it needs to be? Creator's intent, that's all you need because that's what you want. We don't need sports to blind you if we can get the TVs to last a little bit longer. But generally speaking, I believe QD-OLED is fine. However, when you buy any flagship TV, whether it's WOLED or QD-OLED, I strongly encourage you to get a warranty, an extended warranty, period. Because the things that fail will fail before you get the burn-in. That is something that Ratings has noticed. And so this is why the 10% credit at Value Electronics is so important to me. If you buy it there with Robert at Value Electronics, he will price match any authorized retailer. And then with that 10% credit, get your warranty. So now you have protection for 4 years or whatever that ends up being. That makes it worthwhile. You don't have to worry about burn-in. You don't have to worry about their TV failing. You got the TV plus a warranty. And with that, my friends, please click like on your way out to Brian's premiere. I appreciate all of you. And until the next launch, which would be Panasonic, we'll see you guys.